Good afternoon. My name is Daron Babcock, and I'm so honored and excited to be here with you today for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't know, Chad, if you got the same alert I did, but Chad and Salome and I are visiting you from Dallas, Texas, and we just got a heat advisory for our flight home that it's 102 degrees in Dallas. So we're excited to be in Grand Rapids for this taste of early fall weather. I'm also excited here because I love this city. I have the privilege of coming here multiple times a year and working with some of the thought leaders and change makers in this city through my work at the Stand Together Foundation. And I love this city, and it's not just that I love Grand Rapids for the greatness that it currently is, but I love Grand Rapids for the aspiration of what's yet to come. This idea of believe in our city that everybody in Grand Rapids, and that we're not going to stop until everybody has the opportunity to be empowered to thrive and to flourish and to live into the fullness of the potential that God created in each of us. And so this is what I love about your city, and this is what I love about this gathering. Doug and Maria, thank you so much for bringing us together. And Yaka, what an amazing taste or glimpse into the film that's to come. So excited. That was a very powerful 5 minutes with a lot of creative disruption and truth bombs that were embedded. And so I'm excited to welcome a panel up here to talk about that, not only to break down what did we just hear, but what are the ideas that come. So the answer to the question that was asked at the end is what next, that we all walk away from here with an idea of what our role might be in what's next. So please join me in welcoming some local heroes and change makers, Justin Beane, Troy Evans, and Terra Osman. Thank you. So that was, there were a lot of bombs in that 5 minutes. I'm just curious if you would start off by just telling us a little bit about the hats that you wear in Grand Rapids, the work that you do, and then what's your initial impression of just what happened in that last 5 minutes, what we heard in that last 5 minutes?
I think, let's just start with the video. It was fire. Fire in two different ways, yeah. Where it was challenging and then it was exciting. To know that we got work to do, but man, I get to work. We got work to do. That's what I feel. My hats is I'm a retired pastor after 25 years planting 4 churches that I pastored, and 2 of them being here in Grand Rapids, and I was a co-vocational as a IT engineer for most of that time, and as a strategist more so than anything. And so I run an organization called Nitrogen Urban Network, where we help leaders in urban settings to thrive. And then I, with that, birthed a for-profit AI company to help youth and young adults get it done.
Wonderful.
Good, Justin. Lots of hats, founder of the Grand Rapids Center for Community Transformation, also working with Doug and Continuum, helping to lead the Thrive and Prosper movement in Grand Rapids. And I think my whole thing has always been the center itself is like how to bring nonprofits, for-profits, church-based strategies together in a way that's compatible, shared vision, shared values, complementary capabilities to do something unique. I think we've always wrestled with this idea of how do we not just add more programs, but actually create wealth. And so that's one of the things that this documentary tries to get at is how do we stop talking about how do we just alleviate poverty or make poverty more tolerable? How do we actually create wealth? And I think that leads to a different set of solutions and ideas when you think about it in that way.
My name is Terra, and I'm the founder of Farmish. It's a marketplace app for local farms. And that clip got me very fired up about what we're doing and seeing our place in community functions like this and challenges, because we open up market access for local farms. So we are a marketplace, we connect them with consumers and institutional buyers Farmish was born out of a Start Garden 100 Ideas competition. I had an idea and I was like, yeah, I'll try it out. And I made a prototype. I'm a developer. I built and launched it and I had 100,000 downloads in 2 months. So people all over the country were very interested in supporting local farms, getting market access. About 60% of the first 10,000 farms on our platform told us they made their first sales because of Farmish, that they had tried to connect on social media, they had tried websites, and that Farmish connected them with people right in their communities. And so I'm really looking forward to where we're going to be able to not only solve some of these community food access challenges, but to make local food profitable and to make that multiplier effect of the dollar spent with local farms and to keep that money in the community.
Can we dive a little deeper in that? Because I think you and Justin both touched on this, is that we talk a lot about, and I have a personal problem with this, it gets under my skin when we always talk about the problem. Yeah. Like I think what we focus on increases, right? And so I like to focus on where are we going, and this idea of creating prosperity and wealth, one, it's more broad than just material, right? It's wealth in relationships, it's wealth in connections, it's wealth in being able to afford a roof over your head. It has something to do with the material side too, but it's not just the material side. So Justin, when it comes to kind of the comment that you made in the trailer about a lot of nonprofits coming down to be at the heart of the center where the most need is, but not enough businesses, can you peel that back a few layers for us? And what does good look like, and how do we start to think about the shift that needs to take place for that to happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple thoughts. One is, I mean, you had the New Deal, then you had in the 60s Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. $22 trillion since that time has gone into poverty alleviation and eradicating racism. And the poverty needle hasn't really moved. So part of it is just asking the question, is what we're doing working? If there was ever a place in which there was lots of philanthropy, nonprofits to change the trajectory of people who are living in poverty, Grand Rapids would be that place. And yet, when we look at the data, we recognize even that map that Ian Rowe had is that we still have lots of challenges. And so I think part of it is we've been conditioned to think about things from this needs-based perspective. You write a grant and you have to start with your needs statement. So we're constantly thinking about the problem. We become experts at articulating how bad the problem is. And I think we get trapped in not being able to define the solution. And part of that is then, I think we begin to see people living in poverty as a liability to ourselves, even to our organization. And I think we have to move that to, it's not a liability to give charity to, it's an asset to invest in. And that mental model shift, if people living in poverty are an asset to invest in, then no longer is it a transactional relationship in which somehow I'm giving it to you or you have to follow me because I have this bag of money. It's actually what Leela Watson said is, if you come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you believe that your liberation is tied to mine, then let's get to work. For me, that's what this is all about, is actually believing that our collective liberation to become more human together is tied to one another. It's not us as leaders or influencing somehow giving something away to people in poverty. There's actually something much deeper than that, something that allows us to free ourselves to seek the peace and prosperity of the city. And so I think we have to shift that mentality to really think about people as an asset to invest in.
You know, it's interesting. Economists will tell you that a thriving economy is built on participation. And so the more people that participate, the better the economy thrives. And so yet we have this problem set where there's been a group of people in every city across the country that have yet to be able to find their way to integrate into the economy. And instead of taking that as a challenge where your liberation is my liberation, we do a lot of needs-based things that kind of tend to over-orientate on workforce development, like helping prepare people for a job somewhere else. And what I love about what you're doing, Pastor Troy, is this idea of creating business in the community. And what you're doing with Farmish is creating business in a community. You know, they say that the average dollar stays in a middle-class neighborhood for about 6 days, but a dollar will stay in the inner city for about 6 hours. And it makes sense if you think about it, because if we're doing all this work to help plug people into an existing economy and I go somewhere else to work and earn my paycheck, and then I come home and there's no goods or services in my neighborhood, so I spend it right back where I earned it, that economic flywheel in my neighborhood that generates wealth creation never kicks in. Have you seen that through your work?
Absolutely. For us, my focus has been on youth and young adults. They're the only people at our time that can see the past, because we're always reminding them of the past, being in the present, and then also seeing the future. Yet that age bracket, that 16 to 25, the investment is not made there for them to do what they need to do, right? And so for us, as a church, we made a decision that they would be first, period. They would be first. And one of those things that we actually listen to them, what do you need to flourish? And they needed jobs. They need to make money.
Yeah.
They need to get out of poverty. They need to figure some things out. So we decided that we would be the place where we would invest our time, talent, and treasure to help them start companies. And I don't care if the company closed in 2 years. We started 18 of them. The church. We hired, about 400 youth and young adults doing assessments to helping them to figure out, like, who are you? You're uniquely made with a fingerprint that only God can give you. And that's I'm weird too. Yeah. And then set them on their journey to start to flourish. And so I see that as a way. I'm challenging pastors. What do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand, Moses? Use it. Use it for His glory to help the community flourish. Can you help someone to do something with that? Can you help someone? Can you help someone to flip? That's what I know. Can you help someone to make that flip with the talent that you have? I think just one-dimensional pastoring is gone out the window. The day is over.
You took my breath away for a minute with that one. I got to pause for just a second. But, I'm curious about if you're seeing, in my experience in Bonton, the same kind of feedback happened. My neighbors said, if we don't get a job, we're going to wind up dead or back in prison.
Flat out.
Like that was a call to action. And one of the things that we learned as we started working to help prepare people for jobs is that the health outcomes were so bad in our neighborhood that if you don't have the wealth of health, that the wealth of economic opportunities don't matter. And so without having any good ideas at all, we planted a garden on a lot we didn't own, and we got written a ticket for it. We got written a ticket for selling vegetables in the inner city. And that infuriated me, so I went to City Hall to pick a fight. And when I get angry and don't know what to do, I can become passive aggressive. And so we started calling ourselves a farm, and it stuck. So kind of like Collie with the downtown boxing gym. I know he works overtime trying to help people understand it's not about boxing. And we have the same kind of problem with not being about a farm. But I'm curious how you see the intersection of the wealth of health and the wealth of economics tying together through farmish, or any other expressions that you see tying food and well-being to economic opportunities that you see are working.
Yeah, I talked about the multiplier effect earlier, and for every dollar spent on local food, $1.70 to $2 stays within that community. With jobs, with logistics, with supplies, all of it stays right there. And then on top of that, you take the health benefit. People in food deserts, areas of food apartheid, where it's been food access has been systemically removed, and that's not exclusive to urban areas. It also includes rural areas, and they are much less likely to even eat vegetables, whether or not they can access it in other ways. And by just getting to the minimum dietary standard, it can decrease heart disease, strokes, heart attacks by 25%. It's like 23 to 25%, just by getting the minimum standard of vegetables. And so when you put all of those things into one geographic area, we're seeing this in areas of Detroit where they're building urban farms. They have a really successful urban farm network. And there's a startup that's come out of that to do carbon-friendly bundled delivery, and now they're on Farmish because we're connecting them with institutions, with hospitals. Michigan is in a Medicaid food as medicine pilot. We're one of 10 states, I believe, and so there are a lot of conversations happening around that, and that can keep food in that community. It creates jobs, it layers on other companies, and overall it makes people healthier.
Yeah. I'd love to, we have about 6 minutes left, and I would love to turn our focus of the conversation to the audience of everybody showed up here and gave us the generosity of their time to learn and to listen and to participate. And I'm curious, we've been challenged with creative disruption. We're frustrated that the status quo is not working. We are here and all in agreement that we're going to envision and work towards a better tomorrow, empowering people, inviting people into the core of the conversation. We're committed to moving away from charity and towards wealth creation development. But I guess the question is, as they closed in that powerful trailer, is what's next? And so there's a lot of ways that I've seen that we've been able to invite everyday people across the cities and communities that they call home into the work. And I'm curious from each of your perspective, if you had something to say to a willing and capable group of folks that showed up and gave us the generosity of their time today, what would you tell them about how to get involved and how they might find their role in this work? Any ideas come to mind?
Yeah, I can go first.
Go ahead.
Thinking about supporting local companies, I think that's a thought, a wish that we all have, especially with our own companies, but specifically local procurement. If you're buying food for a meeting, if you have an existing company and you have a cafeteria and you buy snacks, or you can set up some sort of market for your staff, and first looking to urban farms because they exist in Grand Rapids, they exist on Farmish, they all over the country, and then also lower income areas, maybe outside of the city limits, and to be able to look to those farms and help them participate in the broader economy. That's the number one thing that we hear, because they're entrepreneurs also, but they are not marketers and they don't have sales departments, and traditionally their opportunities are distributor or farmer's market. And we're saying there's a lot of interest and market demand in between. And so that's something you can do as an entrepreneur or somebody running an organization, is to support local farms that way.
I mean, a couple of thoughts just from my own experiences is first started a landscape company and hired students out of foster care, juvenile justice, and returning citizens. And we do a profit share, like a 10% profit share each year with our employees. And then we raised $5 million. We bought this old furniture factory. And I remember being frustrated, like, I guess we own this building, but it sits within a nonprofit. So it's an asset for the nonprofit, but the dollars sitting on the balance sheet are not going to work. And I started thinking about the now 6,000 nonprofits. And if we added up all the balance sheets that they have in Greater Grand Rapids, how much dollars are sitting on a balance sheet in bricks and mortar buildings that could somehow be deployed in a different way. And so that kind of led to our project now, the Old Heinz Pickle Factory, that's going to be a center for entrepreneurship, in which we're going to leverage philanthropy and state dollars and a unique capital stack to actually create ownership in which the local community, our goal is to have at least 500 residents in that neighborhood who contribute $1,000 or more and actually own 51% of that real estate, who then it kicks off a dividend check for them. It's been a long journey. We've had to find lots of partners. We had to figure out a lot of policy things and legal things, and probably $500,000 just to figure out how to do this. But I think there was just a commitment to saying, whatever space you're in, there is some big idea that you've had at some point in time. And I think someone shared it earlier, like, how many of you thought of something like an Uber and then you just kind of forgot about it? I think the challenge is to say, maybe Doug said, we got to make this personal. It is personal, but you got to make it personal. You got to make it personal with how you interact with the poor and the relationship that you build with them. You got to make it personal in terms of what ideas you bring to the table. And someone said to me, even if the poor or disenfranchised aren't in the room, make for sure what you say would be music to their ears. Make sure it would be good news for them. And so always thinking about the tables and spaces that you represent. Are you speaking in ways and thinking about ideas that are uniquely putting the city and the most vulnerable at the center of it?
Yeah, I would echo that. I'm just going to go back to, if we can give young cats guns and tell them to go fight for our country, then why can't they lead in local organizations? Probably because we suck at boot camps and ongoing training, right? And so I would say we need to not just talk about them, but invite them into the story and let them lead. If we just get out the way and let them lead, I think that was such a great joy to watch them lead and break stuff. It's amazing things that they can accomplish.
Brian Stevens, in his book, Just Mercy, talks a lot about the power of proximity. And I believe and I know this sounds grossly oversimplified, but I believe the reason that our cities are still in the condition they are, where there's people that are being left behind, is because we don't know each other. We've been divided by neighborhoods that are built to segregate us by how much our houses cost. And in doing so, we've lost touch with knowing people that you have a lot more in common with than you realize, but you think you have nothing in common, and so we don't know each other anymore. And I have a belief that if we knew each other again, that we would have the willpower then to see that our neighbors weren't left behind. Yeah. And so I think one of the big, easiest challenges is if you're a relational person, if you're a networking person, those are amazing gifts to apply that take very little effort to get to know your neighbors and to be an advocate for not only the organizations that are working there, but for the people and friends that you meet. And I just close by telling a couple of stories. I'm not that smart. And so when I got invited by the community to address some of these really big challenges that we are still talking about today everywhere across the country, Grand Rapids is not unique in that regard. I don't know what to do, so I started inviting people to conversations, and so the most amazing innovations have come as a result. We have innovative affordable housing projects going because we had two big problems. We had people starting out at minimum wage and were trying to leave the streets and couldn't afford a roof over their head. And we had another problem of trying to help people acquire or become homeowners. And so we invited a bunch of really smart people together that helped create and innovate some really affordable housing designs that are solving both of those problems all across the country. And it's because people like you stepped up and said yes. We are also a food desert in Bonton, or were. And I had a meeting with the head economist from Beane Capital, and he told me about grocery distribution and grocery delivery and how that's becoming a thing where we're not going to be shopping in big box stores anymore. We're actually going to be delivering because it's more efficient to get delivered food to your house than it is for you to drive to a store. And it facilitated a conversation with AT&T and Kroger and Beane Capital where they innovated a way to deliver groceries to households in neighborhoods because it's an emerging market for them. It's a customer base that the grocers aren't currently able to access. We had a banking problem, and we invited bankers and community residents to the table, and they innovated ways to do it. And so I think when you find the thing that you're passionate about, which is what Anyanka challenged you to do, is to take that passion and find a way to plug in, to apply your unique gifts so that we start moving the needle on some of these critical areas. And it starts with just taking the next right step, whatever that may be.
Yeah, Daron, let me, sometimes, you want to wrap up a day like this with this great bow, and maybe, Doug, you'll deliver that for us. But it's tough. But I remember someone once said, sometimes just gather people even if you don't know why. And if anything, maybe let that be part of the experiment here, is like commit to exchanging some information with 5 people that you don't know and see what happens. Is that the reality is that our net worth is our network, and how do we open up those networks and access to markets for others who don't have that? And I think let this just be part of the larger pie of what lots of folks are trying to work on in this city.
Yeah, I think sometimes building community can be inconvenient. And we're used to convenience, we're used to delivery and ordering everything online. And then the more you do that, the more you separate yourself from people around you. And especially when it comes to local stores, local food, people who are doing great things in your community, the more we focus on convenience, the more challenging it gets. Thank you.